The Department of Children and Family Services is pleased to facilitate this discussion by a group of teenagers in the Cayman Islands on the topic Healthy Relationships. This dialogue is in keeping with our focus during Child Month upon promoting voice of participation of children. It is also consistent with our outreach, preventative and education strategy to help our teens in examining meanings of behaviors, to identify warning signs of abusive behavior of any kind, and also in identifying social and emotional skills that are essential for building healthy relationships. We believe that by exploring qualities such as tolerance, equality, kindness, respect, honesty, and trust and support, they will have an opportunity to reflect on their own values, personal choices, individual contributions, and appropriate boundaries which they must set in their relationships.
Please join me in welcoming our panelists for Panel 1, Victoria Buttram of Cayman International School, Leah Robinson of John Gray High School, Mika Ebanks of Wesleyan Christian Academy, Martin Diaz-Pascual of Clifton Hunter High School, and Tyra Eiton of Cayman Prep and High School. We'll begin our discussion on healthy relationships by delving into the topic. Media is pretty pervasive with its depictions of relationships, whether friendships or romance. Movies like risque blockbuster 50 Shades and even Disney classics like Beauty and the Beast have become a jumping point of conversation for what constitutes a healthy relationship. As the discourse of human relationships extends with phrases like Netflix and chill, it's less obvious what a healthy relationship looks like as the term continues to evolve in the 21st century. My question is, what do you think actually makes a healthy relationship? We'll start with Victoria.
Okay. For me, I think a healthy relationship is when you know how to communicate with one another, because if you know how to, it can go from just saying how you feel at a situation or even with consent. When you communicate, then you both are on the same page. You know what they like, what they don't like, their pet peeves or their favorite things, and that can also build trust. So communication is the best way to a healthy relationship.
We'll take Leah.
So a healthy relationship is when you're able to speak up and you can compromise on different situations, and you are able to be respectful to one another. And that's it.
A healthy relationship have trust, forgiveness, and communication and understanding. With forgiveness, you're able to forgive one another. As trust, what's a relationship without trust? How can you go places and not trust this person and you're being with it? So in order to have a healthy relationship, I think trust is very important in towards.
To me, a healthy relationship is about being able to express yourself and be yourself around that person completely, and trusting them to the point where you're not afraid to show them who you are, because you know that that person is going to accept you no matter what, because they care about you.
Personally, I think a healthy relationship extends beyond the interactions between the two people, because you can have two drug addicts in a healthy relationship, but they can communicate with each other and they trust each other, but they're not necessarily in the position to best benefit society. So I think a healthy relationship also has to be one that contributes positively to society.
Thank you, panelists. Our next question. From friendship to love, most of us try to make the right choices, not only for our well-being, but also our peace of mind. We will eventually get to the point in every relationship where we begin to weigh the pros and cons of its impact on our life. And my question is, what are some of the benefits of choosing healthy relationships?
When you choose a healthy relationship, you don't feel any pressure. It doesn't feel like a relationship. It just feels like you're with your friend or with someone, but I guess it's more intimate. So it's like you're not even trying to do anything. You're just enjoying the other person's company. So when you have a healthy relationship, there's no pressure, there's no labels. You can just feel comfortable with the other person.
So choosing a healthy relationship, you will choose people that have a good influence on you, that are able to lead you on the right path and keep you focused and allow you to be a good person.
Choosing a healthy relationship is something that everyone should have. Choosing a relationship can make you feel comfortable. There's someone you could talk to when something is down. That someone is always there for you, whether you know it's a disappointment or you're just being yourself. Choosing a healthy relationship is just something we should have.
A benefit of choosing a healthy relationship is that you don't feel alone. You feel like there's always someone who you can talk to. There's always someone who you can go to when you feel a certain way or when you're down. There's someone who's there to support you, and even if it's not just talking, they're just there for you to express yourself to them and they'll listen. It's always good to have that kind of support from someone.
I think that choosing a healthy relationship is important because, yes, it supports you emotionally and it also provides some physical and biological positive effects, such as an extended lifespan and lower suicide rates in people with healthy relationships. So I feel as though it's very key in life.
Thank you. You all mentioned a few veins that are similar in your answers about having someone who's there unequivocally and who really cares. Can you extend on that a little bit more, maybe with an example of a healthy relationship that you've seen?
Yeah, of course. A healthy relationship would probably be my grandparents from my father's side. They were together from the start and they've been together until my grandfather passed away. I said communication because they communicated with one another, so they understood each other better. They just loved each other because they were from different nationalities, but they had similar interests and they trusted one another and they were respectful. So that's where I base it off of.
An example of a healthy relationship that I know of is my aunt and my mom. They tend to not agree on stuff, but they compromise and they compromise and they can they respect each other while they disagree of stuff, but they still reach the point. And yes.
Thank you.
A relationship that I would say it was me and my best friend, because I tend to make some bad choices in my life, but she was always there to help correct me and guide me. She didn't judge me, but she helped me to go the right path, and she was basically just there, holding me, pushing me to I could do this. She just wants the best for me, and everything I could think of.
A healthy relationship I've seen is my best friend and her boyfriend. And the reason I said emotional support was because of them. I see that she goes through some stuff, and although I'm there for her, it's good that she also has her boyfriend there. He listens to what she says, he gives his opinions, he gives his advice, and sometimes he doesn't say anything at all. He just stays there, listens, and she appreciates that.
Thank you.
An example of a healthy relationship in my life is my father and my 6-year-old little sister, and I think that their relationship is a bit unique because my father will actually apologize to my little 6-year-old sister if he does something that upsets her or he finds that he's done wrong. So he establishes that trust with her, and she also understands the cause of his actions. So if he does get mad and mess up, because he's just human and all parents do it, we all mess up, but she'll come up and say, "Oh, it's okay, Dad, I understand." So to hear a little 6-year-old be able to say that, I think that apology and just forming that understanding is amazing in a relationship. So
Thank you, guys. At any time in our lives, and particularly in high school, we are told about the importance of having the right friends, the right relationships, and some of you mentioned some great relationships there that are healthy and positive, and the right way to be happy. It is hard to ignore that popular culture has a growing sentiment that people and relationships are disposable, from Tinder swipe lefts to social media ghosting. My question is, what isn't a healthy relationship? You mentioned that. Why is it important to choose a healthy relationship?
I think it's important to choose a healthy relationship because if not, you can be damaged when you leave it, because you will leave an unhealthy relationship, damaged emotionally, even physically. You can lose trust in other people, keep your guard up. You can become more aggressive and you don't know how to interact with other people because of the memories you had with an unhealthy relationship.
An unhealthy relationship looks like one where a person pressures you to do stuff that you do not want to do, or they tend to not listen to your opinion, or they don't care for you, or they simply are rude to you.
And why would you say it's important to choose a healthy relationship?
Because you, as humans, you wouldn't want someone that's going to always put you down or does not listen to you, because that isn't a relationship.
Thank you, Leah.
A healthy relationship is when two people are together, right? And one is supporting the other, but the other is not supporting the person who actually supports. So the person that actually supports the other is actually giving her all her best, but then the other is not giving all his best. So it's like mostly one's working the most, one is not, and that's when like effort fails and relationship fails most of the time.
Why is it important to choose healthy relationships?
Because as what she said, we don't want to be in a relationship that would make us feel down, depressed, sad, something that we do, and that it's not always our fault, and damages helping along the way.
Like Victoria said, it's important to choose a healthy relationship because when you do leave that unhealthy relationship, you're gonna be damaged, and even while you're in that relationship, it can cause you to leave people behind who were once important to you, because that person distances you from people you care about, and that person is treating you in a way that makes you feel worthless and makes you feel as if you have no one to talk to, so you immediately push friends and family aside because you think that they can't help you even though you're in that unhealthy relationship. So I think it's important to choose a healthy relationship because you don't want any of that. You want to elevate yourself. You don't want to put yourself down constantly.
I think what makes an unhealthy relationship is, as everyone's been saying, if you're putting in all the effort and someone else is pulling you down, that's definitely a red flag. And I also want to add, it's important to think that your self-preservance is important, but you have to evaluate realistically on whether or not you really are completely just giving your all in the relationship, because I think a lot of people will approach relationships and say, oh, this person is doing blah, 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 and not try to find a resolution and just blame it on their other partner. So there's no middle ground, there's no communication, and I think that's unhealthy in the person who's thinking the relationship is unhealthy as well. There's no fair evaluation or discussion. And I think that it's important to have a healthy relationship because it's important to have healthy people, and you can't have healthy people without healthy relationships. And I mean healthy in all facets, mental and physical. People don't take care of themselves when they're sad. When you're with a partner who doesn't appreciate you physically anymore, sometimes you let yourself go. Or when you're with a partner who just constantly batters you, sometimes you develop inferiority complexes. It's very important. You know?
Thank you, panelists. As a side question, what do you think are maybe some of the signs of an unhealthy relationship?
I I think one of the biggest signs is you feel you have to put on a mask, or you feel pressure with the other person to be perfect. That's definitely a red flag, because as I said before, it's just like being a relationship with someone, either a marriage or dating, is just with a friend, so you should feel comfortable. So if you feel even scared or pressured around the person, that's definitely a red flag.
Thank you.
If you don't feel comfortable around that person, or you just, as she said, that you put on a mask and you don't feel as though you could be yourself around that person, and they constantly put you down and you feel sad, you're supposed to be happy in a relationship with a person.
A red flag to me is like, as I said, put in all the effort. One is put in all the effort, so basically one wouldn't care. And it's what they said, putting a mask on. You're not comfortable, you're not you. In a relationship, you should feel that you should be yourself. They should accept you for your past, your flaws, your everything.
I think signs of an unhealthy relationship is when the person in the unhealthy relationship starts to treat his or her family and friends differently because they feel that they can't let them know what goes on in their relationship, and they can't tell them or ask them for help, so they immediately push them away so that the people around them don't realize what's going on. So I think that definitely when someone who's in an unhealthy relationship starts to push away friends and family, that there should be concern.
I think a sign of an unhealthy relationship is the breakdown of communication, and I think that's the common theme across all dissolving relationships, whether it be father and son or girlfriend and boyfriend. There's a lack of conversation between the two, and when they say start arguing in the kitchen and they're arguing about washing the dishes, it starts to drag on and become about other issues that have been just piling on underneath that person's subconscious and such. So without that discussing the issues that they have, there's just you're planting the seeds for conflict, essentially.
Thank you, Tara. So, an unhealthy relationship, we discussed it, and thank you so much for sharing your opinions, guys. It comes in many forms, and I think that's echoing something that Tara might have mentioned earlier, impacting our emotional, our mental, and our physical health, and sometimes making us doubt our worth or question our confidence. And popular shows like 13 Reasons Why are shedding light on the issue and making us consider the wide-ranging effects of unhealthy relationships. So my question is, how would you help someone who is in an unhealthy relationship?
I would firstly talk to them, but also listen to them, because people would actually run or escape from you if you try to pressure them into taking them out of that relationship. They think it's none of your business. So if you try to approach it gently and get it out of them instead of talking to them, they'll feel more comfortable with you, and subconsciously they don't know it, but they're actually opening up to you, even though they're trying to guard themselves from everyone else. So yeah, the best way to do it would be slowly communicate with them.
Thank you.
That they shouldn't have to be in a relationship with someone that is unhealthy for them, right? They shouldn't have to be in a relationship with someone that is unhealthy for them, because if I see that they're changing, or that they don't feel comfortable with that person anymore, if they feel they're not themselves anymore and they're unhappy, then I would speak to them nicely and saying that they shouldn't have to be with that person anymore.
Thank you.
If you're in an unhealthy relationship, I would suggest to go to a counselor, or give advice myself, or give help. People need to realize and understand that we don't deserve to be in that type of relationship, a relationship that bring you down and not feel yourself. That there will be someone out there that will accept your past, your flaws, and there will be unconditional love by someone else.
I think the best way to help someone in an unhealthy relationship is just to let them know that they have options in staying with that person is not the best option for them and that they need to get help, whether it be a counselor or whether they just speak to you and then you take it to someone else who can help them, just to let them know that they have options and they can help themselves if they want to.
Thank you.
I think that the way that I would help someone in an unhealthy relationship is to just encourage them to examine themselves, like encourage them to engage in introspection. Because I can sit and externally examine their relationship and say that it's unhealthy, but in that relationship, a woman who's being abused isn't stopping to think that she's being abused, she's stopping to think that she's in love with this person. So you can take her to the police station, but she's going to run back to him. So you need to get her to stop and say, why am I going back to him? What am I getting out of this relationship? Where will this put me in 5 years? So you can give as much advice as you want and be an emotional rock to help support them. But until you encourage them to stop and think for themselves, because human beings don't like being told what to do, so they really need to come to that conclusion themselves. There's nothing that you can really do personally to move that person. Can't bring a horse to water until they're ready to drink. So,
Thank you. Thank you for your thoughts. With the development of contraception, it's come a long way since ancient times, and it's been a key factor in preventing diseases, modern diseases, including STIs and HIV/AIDS. However, despite a variety of contraceptives in modern times, we are still bound to hear about unsafe sex practices. Some consensual and others, like the dangerous trend stealthing, involve a man removing the condom during intercourse without consent. My question is, what are the risks involved in having unprotected sexual intercourse with someone?
I think the most obvious would be it could end in pregnancy, it could end in STI, or STDs, sexually transmitted diseases. It could also end in damage to the male or female after the intercourse further down.
So, could you repeat the question, please?
What are the risks involved in having unprotected sexual intercourse with someone?
After having unprotected sex, it is possible for the females to get pregnant, or, as she said, that something may happen, or that they might get injured or something. So,
thank you.
I believe that children should be thoroughly educated, because it could also affect us mentally, physically, and spiritually, and emotionally. On having any sexual exposure at a young age, they're going to want to have intercourse more and more at a young age. So I believe that we should educate our children. It could also have disease. It also leads to pregnancy. It leads to many. It also damages you. It also, it haunts. It feels like it haunts you after it's a sin. So it should haunt you. And, yeah.
The obvious risks are pregnancy and STDs and STIs, but another risk is how Miss Camille said, when the dominant partner does stealthing, you call it stealthing, where they remove the condom without the other partner knowing. I think that down the line, if that other partner were to find out, it would cause a breach of trust, and that relationship would no longer be what it was, because the other partner would know that that partner cannot be trusted to follow certain guidelines and rules that they have set up in their relationship.
Aside from the aforementioned biological and such consequences, I'd also like to talk about some psychological and statistical effects. Recently, there's some statistic that's been collected in America, and it's shown that a woman just having one partner outside of marriage will increase her rate of divorce by 10% or something like that. And I think that this issue also extends a bit farther beyond the two people having intercourse, because when they do it outside of marriage, they're also devaluing the sexual experience. And when you do that, you also devalue partnership and childbearing and the impact and implication of having a child. So aside from the pregnancy and the STDs, there's also a breakdown in the value of a child's life, because it's not something to toy around with. The risk of pregnancy isn't a joke. So, yeah.
Thank you, panelists. For our last question, when we see an unhealthy relationship, it usually provokes a reaction, whether it's the couple in a nice restaurant that's bickering quietly in plain sight, a friend who needs consoling after a nasty argument with their date, a classmate being bullied, or any situation in between. These sights become red flags, and many of us have wanted to step in and help. My question is, what is the best advice that you could give to someone who's in an unhealthy relationship? You gave me a little bit of advice, but give me the best advice.
The best advice I could give to someone is that they need to make sure that they love themselves first, because most people in an unhealthy relationship sometimes would be with that person to feel loved by them and to get love from them. So if that's the reason you're in the relationship and that's the reason it's unhealthy, that's the best advice I could give, is to just love yourself first, because in that way you'd be strong enough to leave that relationship.
Thank you.
The best advice I would give to someone in an unhealthy relationship is that if they don't feel comfortable or if they don't feel themselves around that person because it's an unhealthy relationship, that they're free to just leave the person.
My best advice is to pray to God. God will help you find the right person. Not all the time the person you with or think you're with is the right person. The person could bring you down, as I said many times. It could leave you in many different state of mind. Like you're not yourself. You could leave. It's your choice. It's your life. You should deserve to be happy in a relationship. So I believe that's my best advice.
My best advice would be to just stop and think for 1 second. Who's more important, the person who is abusing you or yourself? And if that person will benefit you in the long run. If the answer is no, then leave that person.
My best advice is probably a bit more morbid than the rest, but I know that counselors often take on this exercise where they encourage people to think about their funeral and to think about what they want people to say about them. So I would encourage that person to think about, what do you want to have accomplished with your life? Will you want to sit there as, let's say, a ghost at your funeral and realize, wow, I sat in a relationship with this man for 20 years and all he did was beat and shout at me. I never got to travel. I never got to go get that master's that I wanted. You know, it's an important exercise to engage in. While it's important to stay in the present, it's also important to think about the future, because I think a lot of people in unhealthy relationships don't stop to think about the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much, panelists, and thank you for summarizing our panel discussion for the first half of this segment. So what I'll do is ask you to exit stage right, and then I'll welcome my colleague and fellow Youth Ambassador, Mr. Andrel Harris, to take my place at the podium as we introduce our next set of panelists. Thank you so much for your honesty and your openness.
Now that we've concluded the first panel, we're about to get the second one underway. So can I call to the stage Cassidy Connor of Lehman E. Scott High School, Brittany Evans of the Cayman Islands Further Education Center, CIFEC, and Leah E. Banks of Hope Academy. Yeah? Okay, guys. All right, so we have a smaller panel we'll go through, but I'm pretty sure we'll still have just as wonderful an insight as we did on the first set. So during panel one, we asked this question. So I'd like to begin our discussion by asking, or also I want to hear your opinion now, panel two, on what constitutes a healthy relationship. My question is, what do you think actually makes up a healthy relationship? And we can begin with you, Ms. Cassidy.
Definitely trust, communication. There's quite a lot of factors, but it's trust, communication, honesty, definite loyalty. But I would say communication is the biggest one. Because if you're not able to communicate with the person, they won't know how you're feeling, what's going on in your life. And personally, why would you want to be with someone if they don't understand you?
For sure, trust and loyalty, as she said, and also compatibility. If you guys are, there's a sense of compatibility where both of you are really into the same things, you guys can bond and grow, and while you guys are doing the same activities or something, you can learn things about each other that you didn't know.
Yeah.
I agree with the first panel when they first came out with communication, and others on my panel as well, that communication, trust, and loyalty are great factors of being in a healthy relationship. I think also a healthy relationship says that you can pursue each other, and it's not just one-sided. It has to be on a level that only you two can understand, and that's quite often miscommunicated a lot. Some people will look out from the outside into the relationship and wonder, what is that special spark that you guys have? And really and truly, it's very specific to each person and each individual in each relationship.
Okay. Now, romantic relationships take a lot of navigation. Whether dating casually or pursuing serious relationships, we have heard about the risks. Some that are emotional, like a bad breakup, and others that are physical, like STIs or pregnancies. Love is important not only to adults, but also to teens, and who have just begun actually navigating its ups and downs. My question is, do you believe that children 16 years or older should be involved in a sexual relationship? And provide your reasons why.
Personally, I don't think so. If you're not allowed to drive or vote or even buy a cigarette or buy a beer, why are we allowed to bring in another life? Sex can lead to unwanted pregnancies, but also, we're still considered a child at 16, as you said. So why should we be having sex? Or, why we should be having sex? It doesn't really make any sense, especially in this country at that. Yeah, personally.
Me personally, no, because you have a whole life ahead of you. I don't think you should really be thinking about having sex at this age, only if, you're at that point where you're ready to start a family, which should be in marriage, religiously speaking. And even if it is happening, you should be mature enough and be smart enough about it and use contraceptions to avoid possible situations.
I think that at the age of 16, even though we might be children, it is something that we're growing into. At that age, we are trying to experiment and be rebellious. We are trying to become our own adults. And sex is just one of the other things that we're trying to express ourselves. I think we should be able to do it, but on our own right, because we are individually different. If you choose to not have sex at 16, good for you. If you want to have it 10 years down the road, perfect. It's something that is for the individual, not specifically all around. So yes, you can have sex at the age of 16, but I also think it should be safely.
Growing up, I heard the phrase from my parents, do as I say, not as I do. And you can believe me when I tell you I've not always listened to what I've been told to do. And as a teen and as a young adult, it feels like a whole other ball game. Now, are parents responsible for the relationships that their children form? If so, why? And this time we're going to start with you, Leah.
I think parents are a key aspect to every relationship that you form, because your parents are what help create you from when you're a child. What you are is a product of what they are, not just biologically, but mentally as well. You learn so much from your parents, and how you form relationships and the examples they give you are the examples you're going to build off of, whether you know it or not. It's it's hard to say, but it's true. If you are constantly influenced by your parents from a very unhealthy relationship, it's more than likely that you will develop one. And I think our parents are one of the biggest factors in developing any relationship, whether it be sexually or in a friendship or even spiritually.
Thank you.
For sure, yes, parents have a big influence on their kids when it comes to relationships. We all have heard it before. A girl who grows up without her dad, it's really hard for her to choose the right guy. She gets in this pattern where she's choosing the same people, but in different bodies. So I mean, parents for sure. If you were grown up in a broken home, it's really difficult when it does come to finding that person, because if a girl is grown up without her dad, she doesn't know how a guy's supposed to treat her. She doesn't know what she should accept and what she shouldn't accept, because she doesn't have that male factor in her life, and then she gets in these terrible relationships because she's looking for that male figure to love her.
I would say definitely, but it also depends from person to person. Parents, they show, in their relationship, they show what's acceptable and what's not. So if your mom or dad is getting abused, then you'll think, oh, it's acceptable. And you'll think if you're getting abused, then it's okay. But then another person might know, yeah, that's wrong. So they might stray from what their parents are doing. So it just depends on person to person, personally.
The age of consent for females in the Cayman Islands is 16 years old. And for males, the age of consent is 14. What do you believe is the acceptable age of consent and why? Start with you, Brittany.
For me, it would definitely be 18, because you're an adult, you can do whatever you want. I find it unfair right now that guys get to have sex, like the legal age is 14 and for girls it's 16, because I feel like some guys take advantage of it because they're not the ones getting pregnant, we are, and they can just go around and do whatever they want and not take responsibility. But you know, so I really think that 18 is just better, because your mind is more developed, you are maturing even more, and like you think about the consequences more than just being 14 or 16. You don't really think about the consequences that much. So
I think it should both be 16. I do agree that it's not fair that guys should be able to do it younger than we do, but when it comes down to how we have developed, guys do start feeling those things earlier, and that's understandable, but that doesn't mean that they should have the right to act on it at that type of age. They don't understand the consequences at the age of 14.
I think I agree with her. It should be 18 because we are considered adults. But right now I think it's unfair that they should start at 14 for males and 16 for females because, as she said, we're still not developed yet. At 16 you're not developed. At 14 you're definitely not developed as a male. So I think it should be put 18. Then we're both thinking as adults, or we're getting there, and we can think more about the consequences.
All right. Now, communicating and actively listening are thought to be the basis of strong relationships. What role does communication play in the formation of relationships? Why is good communication important? Cassidy.
As I said earlier, it's really important because you need the person you're with to understand you. If they don't understand you, then it's like talking to a wall, basically, you know. You need someone that can compromise with you, they can listen, they understand you when there's a facial expressions, because communication is not more verbal, but it's by body language also. So it's definitely important to have a good communication with the person you're with.
For sure, as everyone has said, communication is key. You know, when a husband and wife, when they have kids, they have to communicate, okay, who's picking up the kids from school, who's taking them to practice, who's doing this, who's doing that. I mean, if there's no communication, they could get into, like, major arguments, sometimes pointless arguments. So, and, you know, as she said as well, if you're in a relationship with someone who
you guys have terrible communication. It's like, as she said, talking to a wall. It's like this person just completely doesn't care what you have to say. Like, they're just not being there for you emotionally, and psychologically that can do a lot to you.
I think that communication is key because you can't have any good relationship without communication. Communication builds trust and loyalty and understanding and compromise. All those things come into play when you communicate. And as Cassidy said, it's not just verbal, it's on your face. You have to read people, and you have to often read between the lines of what people say. It's not what comes out of their mouth that you have to listen to all the time. It's what their actions have said, what their face is saying, how they are reacting to what you say, and if you can't read all of that, it's not going to turn out great, honestly. It's going to be like talking to a wall.
The docuseries Catfish became a media sensation when it first burst on the scene, sharing the stories of people who had been fooled or catfished by persons they communicated with online, and even formed relationships without having met in person. From online dating apps like Tinder to chat rooms and even sites like Ashley Madison, whose big data hack leaked the names of persons seeking extramarital affairs, it seems the digital age has tried to make forming relationships easier and more accessible with a twofold effect that maybe has made it more difficult in the 21st century. My question: social media plays a significant role in society today. Are there any risks associated with social media? If so, what impact would this have, or does this have, on a relationship?
I think one of the impacts is that people know too much. On Instagram, everyone posts their business. For example, now you guys get in an argument and they're going to go and vent. Put up a picture of this girl, and they're like, they have problems, and everyone feels off in misery. If you pick up some people, they like to see that people are unhappy. So definitely it can bring strain on the relationship because they like to vent, or they like to go look up stuff, or even talk to other people secretly when they're upset. So it brings a strain to the relationship.
For sure, social media can really destroy a lot of relationships. As you've mentioned, Ashley Madison, for example, it's inappropriate. I mean, you're married, it's a commitment. Why would you want to go on this website to talk to other people? Are you not happy with who you're with? So, I mean, there's that, and, social media, if a guy and a girl break up, some guys are really spiteful, so they like to post things that their girlfriend did with them, or they like to, as we call it, expose them. And not only that, it makes cheating so much easier. As she said, you can talk to other people and no one would ever know. But like back in the day, social media was non-existent really. So it was kind of hard to cheat on your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend. And not only that, but social media can hurt communication in a sense, because when you guys are arguing or when you guys are on a date, you're just on your phone, like you're not in the moment. But compared to back in the day, you guys enjoyed each other's company more. More memories were made, and it wasn't all about Snapchatting the date or whatever. So
the biggest risk that I think comes from social media is basically social media, we use it as a mask to show who we want to be or say what we want to say and do what we want to do, and people only see what we tell them. And the more information that we give them, that's the more information they can hold against us. If we make one mistake ever, once, and we post it, or it's seen online, as they say, it's there forever. And you're going to know that it's forever, because you can feel it. Someone will bring it up sooner or later. It might not be 10 minutes later, or it might be 2 seconds later. Who knows? It could be years down the line, but someone's always going to have this impression on you. And it's not just social media itself as a vent that we use. It's the people themselves. We are the ones who give the power to social media. If we kept ourselves towards other people physically, actually spoke to people and communicated not just through social media, we'd see a difference. I mean, people like myself, we don't use social media to post and show who we are personally. I like to go out the old-fashioned way and say, "Hi, nice to meet you." And it depends. It's a type of person that you are. It is hard to escape, but you have to show self-control in that situation.
Love and sex are intertwined. But is there a difference between sexual intercourse and love? Give reasons for your answers. Start with you, Brittany.
Oh my God, a major difference. I could have sex with someone and I don't love them. There's a difference between lust and love. Like, guys, like at Bada Banu that just recently happened, they could look at a girl and be like, "Oh yeah," like, but they don't love her. They're just looking at what they can see that is like left little to the imagination. So for sure there is a big difference in lust and love, because what I've learned at youth group is that sex is more than just a physical act. It's a spiritual thing. Sexual intercourse, you could choose to either make it be something just physical, like just like a one-night stand, or something really spiritual, like, oh my gosh, I love this person. Me personally, if you choose to have sex with someone, make it be with someone that you really love and who feels the same about you.
Awesome.
Most definitely, there is a difference, because sex is more physical, but love is from the inside out. You can have sex, it's casual nowadays. You can just go to a bar and just hook up with someone, that's it. But I mean, love is the feeling you feel inside, and it's beyond the looks, because sex is basically about the looks, or most people lust, as you said. But love is something you feel. I can't really explain what love is, but it's most definitely different from sex.
Even though sex is based on looks mostly, it's a part of who we are biologically. We're going to want to have sex. We are physically made to mate and multiply, basically. Let's not deny the facts that that's who we are going to be. But that animal attraction is nothing compared to what love can be. People, as I said, can just go out and do it and not even have it bother them at all. And love, it's more than just something that you feel physically. It's something you feel emotionally, mentally. When you're in love, it's this special feeling that you don't understand, because the most common question is, what is love and what is love to you? And no one can ever answer it, because it comes in so many different forms and shapes and sizes, and it's ever changing, and it's for each person individually and everyone differently. So love and sex are two different things for sure, but it depends on your definition.
All right, well, that concludes the questions for this round. Thank you guys very much. Very insightful answers there. Panelists, thanks again for your honesty and openness at today's Child Month's 2017 panel on healthy relationships. It sets an example for the ways that we should cultivate and strengthen positive relationships